Hi everyone, it's Ross Anderson here from the Australian and New Zealand Boutique Wine Show with episode number 10 of Meet the Boutique Winemakers. And of course, this is the continuation of the Trophy Edition. And now we ran the Australian and New Zealand Boutique Wine Show a couple of weeks ago in Sydney, and despite the challenges of 2020 with COVID, we had an amazing representation from across Australia and New Zealand of all the boutique winemakers. And this show, and the Australian and New Zealand Boutique Wine Show, is celebrating 25 years of supporting the small winemakers of Australia and New Zealand. As always, the aim of these interviews is to inform, educate, and entertain you on all things boutique and share the stories and the personalities behind the brands, which are the heartbeat of Australian and New Zealand wine. Now, on to today's interview. There are many great wineries in the Grampians region of Victoria that are well worth visiting, and Grampians Estate should be your number one pick. The region is known for its sparkling Shiraz, once made famous by the Seppelts. And whilst Grampians make estate examples of sparkling Shiraz, today we're focusing on one of their other varieties, which took out the trophy honours at the 2020 ANZ Boutique Wine Show. Grampians Estate is more than a winery though. This year saw them reopening a new cafe and a cellar door dedicated to showcasing the regional produce of this beautiful part of Victoria. So let's dig in. I'm joined on the line by owner and winemaker, Mr. Tom Guthrie. How are you, Tom?
Good, thanks, Ross.
Welcome, and thanks for taking some time out of your busy Friday afternoon to have a chat with us. How are things down in your beautiful part of the world?
They're fantastic in a number of ways. Both the season is just brilliant after the terrible season most people had in Victoria last year with bushfires and smoke and poor flowering and fruit set. The lowest vintage in 20 years for us and probably many others. But this season, nature's bounced back and we've had heaps of spring rain. The vines look unbelievable and shaping up to be a great crop. And on the other front, Victoria's had a pretty ordinary time with the COVID thing, with many months of closure and difficulties. And for once, where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with 28 days now of no community transmissions and many of the restrictions being eased. So on both fronts, we're looking pretty excited.
Good. Fantastic. And I guess when lockdown happened the first time, nobody knew what was happening. There was a bit of a tilt in the economy. But since then, and with Melbourne and Victoria stabilising and just yet being under that lockdown, have you noticed that the consumer confidence is slowly starting to return?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's amazing. Just, I guess, partly the time of year, the weather, everything, that freedom, that the sales at the cellar door are just taking off. So it's very exciting, and leading into Christmas, I'm sure other wineries are feeling the same too. I've visited Blue Pyrenees this morning, and the same's happening there. Their sales are just going exceedingly well. So we're all happy.
It's great. It's a little blessing of COVID, I think. The regional tourism and the loyalty of the people in the areas buying the local produce. But what we're here to discuss today, amongst many other things, is this amazing wine, your Grenache, that took out the trophy honours in the other red class, the Fields Crossing Grenache 2019. Massive congratulations to you. You've been a long time supporter of the ANZ Boutique Wine Show, and it was great to see this wine get up. Was there anything about 2019 that sticks in your head that was part of making this amazing wine?
With good wines, often you see something special at a very early stage. When it was picked, it came in and it was only about 12 and a half, and I thought, gee, we've picked it a week early. But as soon as it developed as a wine after fermentation, you could see that this had this amazing aromatics, and right through it's barrel aging in old barrels, you could always get this just beautiful nose. And then when it was bottled, the same. There's something a bit more special about this particular vintage, and really it's nature doing its thing. You know, every vintage is a bit different. And some years are better than others. And, you know, it's very much what nature's throwing up. You know, I always think our job as a winemaker is just not to stuff it up.
That's true.
So, you know, I've actually only been in charge of the wines for a couple of years. We've had other people helping in the winery, and I'm very much the L plate winemaker. But I took over. I've done 2 vintages on my own now, and it's just a great honour to pick up a trophy like this, because it means that you haven't stuffed it up.
Absolutely. And so, Tom, if I'm at your beautiful cellar door and I'm sitting at the table, which is the new norm now, a booked-in tasting, and you're pouring this wine into the glass, what are you telling the punters? Like, what are they looking for in the wine? Describe it, some of the characteristics, please.
Well, I think the first thing you notice when you pour the wine is to look at the colour, and it's very medium bodied. It's almost a light red, and to perhaps new people that haven't drunk a lot of Grenache before, you could say it's like a light Pinot because of the cherries. But first of all, that bright red colour, and then the nose. You know, you have to smell it before you taste it, and it's just full of aromatics, cherries, rose petals. They just jump out at you, and there's complexity in the aromatics. And then on the palate, it's delicate. It's not wholesome. It's more elegant, and you're tasting sort of raspberries, cherries, a little bit of plums, and you know, it's just one of those wines right from the beginning that you go, wow, there's something special about this. And but for me, it's the aromatics that really stand out.
It was interesting when I remember being in the back area of the wine show where we were prepping the bits and pieces, and when we get the repours coming through, you can often see which of the wines that are in contention, and yours was there. And then it went to another round of repours, and yours was there. And I mean, it goes through quite a process of getting right to the very end. And yeah, it was just really exciting when that came through. We were very excited about that result because we could see it happening, but we didn't actually know what was happening at the front end. So a great wine and well deserved, and congratulations on that. Tom, can you tell us a bit about you? Tell us a bit about your story in wine. What's your journey like in the wine industry?
Yes, I'm a 4th generation sheep farmer, and at the end of about 1989, I thought there's got to be more to life than chasing sheep, and was looking for a bit of diversification farming program. And I thought, well, look, we live in this area where there's some pretty smart wines made. I'll put in a vineyard. And that was sort of the beginning of, you know, I thought, well, I'm a farmer, I can grow things. Let's do that for a bit of diversification. And yeah, I didn't realise that I knew so little about viticulture and horticulture and that type of agriculture. But look, over time, I knew it was a long-term venture. Eventually, we got some wine made with a local winery, and then after making wine with him for 10 years, we created our Grampians Estate brand, and we got burnt out in the bushfire, in the Grampians bushfire 2006, and then in 2007 that winery couldn't make our wine anymore, so we ventured out and started making wine ourselves with a lot of help of consultants and so on. And it's just been a wonderful journey to make wine and see a product go from the raw product right through to the consumer, unlike the lamb and wool we produce, which you sell as a bulk commodity. And I think with the wine industry, there's a real thrill to make wine that is judged to be worthy of winning trophies, and that consumers come back and buy again. Anyone will buy the first bottle. It's the second and third bottle that are the problem.
Absolutely. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong here, but research on your website and about your estate would show that you generally specialise in Shiraz. Would that be a correct assumption?
Absolutely. Our cellar door is 1 kilometre from Seppelts and 2 kilometres from Best's, and
wow.
that will tell you that Shiraz is what grows best in our region. Absolutely. And of course, out of that came sparkling Shiraz way back in the 1890s. But look, Shiraz is the absolute mainstay. Riesling is the white variety that does best in our region. But in recent times, a lot of local growers have been perhaps experimenting or certainly trying different varieties. There's a little bit of Nebbiolo, there's a little bit of Sangiovese. But a friend of mine who has a vineyard just at the back of Seppelts, he's planted a number of varieties, which includes Grenache and Tempranillo. And that's where we source those grapes at the moment. And he's planted them with climate change in mind. Grenache needs a lot of heat to ripen. It's a very late picked variety, and so it hangs around a long time. Tempranillo, of course, came from Spain, where it's damn hot, and they're I think varieties of the future.
So whilst we're on that, I was going to ask you about your thoughts on alternate and emerging varieties. What do you think that future looks like in Australia? Do you think it's going to become more than just a test per vineyard? It's going to become more of a mainline thing? I mean, I was talking to the guys down in Hobart last week, and they were saying cool climate Syrah could be on the horizon there. And of course, the guys in the Barossa are growing more of these alternate varieties or these heat-resistant varieties. What do you think that looks like for you in particular and in Australia as general?
Look, I think that all those people are on the money. There's no doubt that climate change is here, and because there's such a sort of a lead-in time for producing grapes and developing vineyards. I think most wine makers and winery owners have a long-term view of what it means to be in a climate change world. And so I'm sure most of them are thinking about what varieties are going to be around in 20, 30, 50 years' time. And it takes time. I mean, you plant vines, it takes 2 or 3 years to get them producing, and then they're only teenagers, so it's another few years before they're producing trophy-winning wine like this Grenache. And look, consumers are the ultimate deciders, and whilst everyone's going to keep drinking Shiraz, people are looking for a bit of variety when they're buying wine. And so you see out in the marketplace lots of different varieties of wines, and we see them, and you probably see them in your wine show, but I know in our Western Victorian Wine Challenge, in the other Reds category, there were 30 entries, and there must have been a dozen different varieties in there of people just trying different varieties.
Yeah. And varieties you never heard of either.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking this year we had Mencia for the first time, which was exciting. So.
You know, you're going to try to... Yeah, and it helps if you can pronounce it.
All right, so
Tom,
what I wanted to, yeah, I'm here. We're having a few technical glitches, but I'm still here and I can still hear you.
Yep, oh, that's good.
All right, Tom. So what I'd like to learn a bit about is this wine here, the Grampians Estate GST. What can you tell us about this wine?
This wine, so it's the GST is Grenache Shiraz Tempranillo blend, and this particular 2019 vintage has 50% Grenache, 40% Shiraz, and 10% Tempranillo. When we first put this blend together 4 or 5 years ago, Shiraz was the major contributor to the blend, and so according to protocol, that would mean you would have an SGT. So we mucked around and we tried with Grenache as the biggest component, and that way you'd have the GST and a marketing line which read that the wine had 10% more flavour.
And that's very good. And how would you describe it to the punter when they come to the cellar door and you're pouring it in? What do you tell them? What's the flavour descriptors that come to mind?
Well, interestingly, when we, for the first couple of years, when we had the Grenache, the GST and the Tempranillo on tasting at the cellar door, it was the GST that would sell at 4 times the rate of the varietals. So that gave us the confidence to really, to make more of it and to promote that one as more of a selling wine. And to this day, it remains the main seller of the three. But what it does, you've got the Grenache gives you that cherry, the cherry aromatics. The Shiraz gives you a bit more body and colour and a bit of the spice. And the Tempranillo, that 10% of Tempranillo gives you sort of a bit of earthiness, a bit more sort of brooding flavour. And together, I guess it's a much more complex wine than either of the varietals.
Sounds divine. Oh. Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So Tom, Grampians Estate.
Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say Grampians Estate is established in 1995, and you buy out the previous owners in 2004. Can you tell us a bit about the history behind the estate and how this operation has changed since 2004?
Well, look, in 95, we actually, there was a group of friends who owned it, and they bailed out. They might have known more than I knew. And in 2004, we, a group of 6 of us purchased the cellar door at Great Western. And after about 4 years, we realised that a committee of 6 is about 5 too many. And so we bought them out. And since then, we've owned the cellar door and vineyard at Great Western and developed it under the Grampians Estate brand. Only in this year have we, moved the cellar door business model from a strict cellar door with a cheese platter to more of a winery cafe. Yeah, we've still got those vines there that were planted in 1878.
That's fantastic. And Tom, what would you say would be the highlights reel of the last 15 years?
After staying married, Sarah's yelling approval in the background.
Sarah's on the screen as well.
Look, I think the absolute highlight, of course, is to win a trophy at the Boutique Wine Awards. But after that, in 2017 and 2018, we won the Champion Winery Award at the Australian Small Winemakers Show, held at Stanthorpe every year. And that's judged on your best 3 wines of the show. And I think that was a really great accolade because, you can fluke a trophy at a wine show, or perhaps not fluke, but be rewarded for one great wine. But to have 3 wines that contribute to an award like that was very exciting. And then last November, there's a new award in Victoria called the Premier's Award, and it is there are 11 country wine shows in Victoria each year, and the Premier's Award is a taste-off between the champion wine of each of those 11 Victorian country wine shows and our Great Western Shiraz 2017 St Ethel Great Western Shiraz won the Premier's Award for Champion Wine of Victoria. So we're pretty excited about that. And this year, the part of that award was that the Premier puts on a bit of a shindig at Parliament House, and we get a bit of PR from that. He's been a bit busy this year to conduct that side of.
Absolutely. And Tom, you shouldn't overlook this award here. You picked up this Australian Bestseller Door Award in 2019 through Gourmet Traveller Wine. That's something to celebrate as well.
Yeah, look, I think look, it's a great award to win because it, I think, reflects very much on the staff. There was a survey done in Victoria a couple of years ago which interviewed people leaving cellar doors, and the number one thing that determined whether visitors purchased wine was the friendliness of the staff. And it's one thing to build a new winery cafe and have wonderful food, but if your staff aren't friendly and courteous and pleasant, then the experience isn't as good as it could have been. So it's hats off to them. They can't hear me at the moment, but they are a key to any small business or any cellar door operation. So we're delighted to have won that. Together with the Grenache Trophy, we're pretty.
Tom, can you talk to us about this wine, the longest drive, Tempranillo? What's the longest drive about?
Apart from being a winemaker, I'm also an author. So I wrote a book called The Longest Drive, and our daughter has designed the labels for these 3 wines, and each is so The Longest Drive was actually the name of the book that I wrote, and it the title comes from the longest sheep drive in Australian history, when my great-grandfather organised 10,000 sheep to walk from our property in Western Victoria to his new property that he bought on the Barclay tableland in the Northern Territory. This was in 1880, and the drover left a record of where he went and some of the trials and tribulations, and that formed the basis of my book, and has also given me the name to put on this particular wine as part of what we call the sheep series. So the Tempranillo's, it's as our friend's vineyard gets older, these vines are about 8 years old, and I love if you've had good Tempranillo, they're wonderful wines. They're moorish, they're earthy, and I think this is a good expression, and I think Tempranillo has a great future, and I know this particular wine is quite sought after at the cellar door.
Fantastic. And Tom, another question, and more about the region. What do you think it is about your location that makes amazing fruit, grows amazing grapes, which results in really great wines? And while you're talking, I'm going to pop up the map on the screen here so people can get an idea of your location. So Grampians Estate is to the left of Melbourne on this map. And then if we zoom in, we've got, you're out in the country there. It's beautiful, undulating green hills. And we can zoom in a little bit further. It says Great Western. And then we'll zoom straight into the property. And this is where the cellar door is. So what is it about this region, Tom?
Look, I think it's we're on the Great Dividing Range, and the winery and the Mafeking Vineyard is just on the south side of the range. Great Western is just on the north side of the Dividing Range, and the area, it's obviously all about terroir. It's the soil and the climate, but particularly the climate. So it's hot enough to ripen Shiraz and Cabernet, but particularly Shiraz, but we get the cool nights. So we get quite a nice long ripening period to develop the flavours in the wine. We're quite, a lot of Victorians along the Great Dividing Range, we call it cool climate Shiraz. And whilst it's 37 degrees today, it's hardly cool climate. Compared to the Barossa, it's cool climate. So when you're looking at Shiraz, you're looking at different styles. Barossa is rich and full of plums and not so big on aromatics and spiciness, whereas what our cool climate Shiraz, it's that longer, slower ripening period that gives us a more medium-bodied style, but more spice and pepper on the nose. And it's horses for courses, and it's where we live, and it's what nature does for us with our soils. But luckily for us, it's ideal, particularly for red varieties and Riesling.
Sounds like somewhere I really need to visit, that's for sure. Tom, is there anything you can share with us about your future plans over the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I don't like to aim too high, but over the next 10 years, I just want to win the Jimmy Watson. That would be a nice start. But I'd also like to win Wine of the Show at the Boutique Wine Awards. So they're two aims. I'm I'm actually finishing my winemaker's degree at Charles Sturt University. In my class there, I'm the only student who has both a student and a seniors card. So I am at the older end of the spectrum, but I hope to enjoy the next 10 years or so making some great wine, seeing our winery cafe become a sort of regional hub for quality food. And we're also next year going to plant, there's a bit of space in the vineyard. We're going to put in 3 acres of Grenache. So you can see where I'm putting my bets for the future.
So, question for you. You said you were a 4th generation sheep farmer who has moved into agriculture and viticulture and wine, and you write books, and you have a cellar door and a cafe and a whole setup there. But of all of these, which would be your pick, or was there another career path?
Well, I did engineering at university. I actually did agricultural engineering, but realised that my love was on the land and in farming. And I guess when you come home from university, all options are open. I did a bit of cropping. Discovered that I had the opportunity to concentrate on the sheep farming, which is down here and on the edge of the Grampians, which is just a beautiful part of the world. And I've developed this passion for the wine industry, and really, I guess that's having written one book. I don't want to do that again. But look, that was painful. Well, it wasn't painful, but it's very time consuming. And look, the wine, you get a chance every 12 months to produce another batch of wines that you're never really sure how good they're going to be. Some will be good and some will be bad. It's like getting, a whole lot of Christmas presents once a year from that particular vintage. And some of them, and one of them one day could be the Jimmy Watson winner. You just don't know. And when you win an award, it's like wine judges have seen something special in your wine, and it's just that great pat on the back and satisfaction that, as I said before, you didn't muck it up, but nature just came together to produce that fantastic wine, and that there's going to be a lot of people out there who love drinking that wine.
Absolutely. Tom, tell us your favourite wine memory.
About 3 or 4 years ago, Sarah and I went to a wedding in Ireland, and I said I'd only go if I could come back via Bordeaux. So I organised 4 days of visits to, I think we went to 7 wineries, including Chateau Margaux and Chateau de Chem. And wow, that was just awe-inspiring to see what the top shelf wineries can do, and their marketing and the professionalism, and wow, it's just gobsmacking to see what they do in France. But on the other hand, you could see that the winemakers' hands are tied behind their backs, because tradition dictates that they've all got to use the same bottle. They all have Cabernet in their barrels for 18 months and not 17 or 19. They can't overproduce. You got to tip it on the ground. So it also taught me how lucky we are in Australia to have so much freedom to grow whatever varieties we want to put anything on the label, just to have so much more fun and experimentation with how we make wine, how we present it to the customer. We're very lucky, and it's just a wonderful industry to be in, and we're very lucky here in Australia, and it's great. We've got great wine shows like yours that can give us a pat on the back every now and then.
Sounds amazing. I need to get over to Bordeaux, but that will happen maybe in the future. Tell me, last question for you, Tom. When you're in the car and you're driving between your various locations and your beautiful part of the world, what's playing on the radio? What are you listening to? What's your taste in music?
Look, I'm as I've said before, I'm a bit on the age side, but I love Paul Kelly. He's just amazing, and I've been listening to a lot of his work this year, and of course, being a Victorian, we've been missing the MCG and being able to go to the AFL football. So, of course, his song "Leaps and Bounds," where he's high on a hill looking at the MCG, is rings in my ears.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. Tom, let's put a wrap on. Where can people go to buy this wine? To the website, grampianestate.com.au. Is there a wine club that people can sign up to?
Yes, we have a wine club called the Streeton Club, and you can either sign up for 2 or 4 deliveries a year. But yes, if you can't remember grampianesestate.com.au, just Google Grampians Estate, and it comes up pretty much at the top of Google searches. We are only a pretty small winery. We process currently 30 to 40 tonnes a year. We're slowly increasing, but your show has wineries up to I think your limit is 500 tonnes, 250.
250.
But
250
we're
tonne.
growing, and 250. Sorry. So I guess one of the advantages of being a boutique small winery is it's very much hands-on. We can still get a lot of fun and enjoyment out of the whole process, because we're not handling huge volumes and heaps of staff running around trying to sell your wine. So it's still at a size that can make us a little bit of money, give us a lot of satisfaction from the process. Sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes when you have a great wine, it runs out too quickly, but we'll be making another trophy-winning wine next year.
I look forward to that. I look forward to tasting it. Absolutely. All right, Tommy, thank you so much for joining us and for your time today. Sorry about the few technical glitches we've had, but that's part and parcel of this new way of doing business in 2020. Merry Christmas to everyone down your neck of the woods. Hope you have a great trading period and a bit of a break, either just leading into or leading out of Christmas whenever you turn the engine off. But thanks for joining us. I'm just going to minimize you for a sec, so don't go away. All right, everyone, that was it for this episode. Get on to grampianesestate.com.au, join up, sign up, buy yourself a mixed case of wine, taste these amazing wines from this cool climate region, check out those Shirazes, but have a look for things like the Fields Crossing Grenache, the GST, and the Longest Drive Tempranillo. Have a look at some of those Rieslings, there's some great Christmas drinking coming up here, or there's just great drinking in general. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned for more. We've got plenty planned over the next few weeks. Lots of cool interviews with great winemakers across Australia and New Zealand. Until next time, stay safe.